good. Well, Will, thanks so much for being my first guest in this new podcast that I'm trying to actually launch. Still don't have a name for it. So if you have any suggestions, I'm all ears for it.
Work in progress. Yeah, no, this is great.
Work in progress. Hey.
Yes.
I like that.
Actually is a good one. Yeah, that could be a good one.
Might be a good one. So welcome to Work in Progress for right now.
TBD. Yep.
TBD. But really the idea behind this whole podcast is actually, and I mentioned this before, is my son. He's 14. He doesn't really have an idea of what he wants to do yet. And I feel just like him at that age, there's like a lot of people that are kind of in that same spectrum.
Definitely.
And then you go into your 20s, you go into your 30s, possibly even your 40s. Maybe you did your whole life and you still never figured out what it was that you really wanted to do.
For sure.
So the idea behind this is just really to actually start something that allows him to maybe start looking at these episodes. And if it helps anybody else out there, like more power to them, to try and maybe figure out not necessarily what they might want to do, though it may come to them.
Yeah.
But maybe more so the fact that resiliency, discipline, a lot of these things, motivation can carry you a long way.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then, that might be the way to start, right? Like trying things, going through failures, learning from them, going through learning curves, and just applying yourself in a way that you never stop.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I feel like this is a perfect way because you've always wanted to give back in some shape or form. And so I know you had a lot of ideas. So first, thank you for having me on as your first official
I'm honored.
Rep.
I'm
so
honored
this is great. This is cool. I mean, this is a first for all of us, I feel like. So this is going to be cool. Having this information out there, either it's for Santi or for any other kids or even like adults, like you said, I think it's going to be extremely helpful because like you said, everybody's roles and paths are different. And so for you to be able to get that, on a podcast or on a YouTube channel or whatever the case may be, to share with everybody would be extremely helpful because it almost gives them the fast track kind of Sparks Note versions of what they could be doing because people don't know what they don't know. So this is exactly going to help unfold a lot of that potentially for people.
No, 100%. I agree with you. And I'm actually, like I said, I'm super honored that you're here because, full disclosure, right? We're family.
Yes.
We are family. But it's still like, having you as a family member coming in here, having your full support for this. And not only, and if people start wondering how we're family, I think.
Full blood. Yeah, we checked Ancestors, like, 23, all of that. Everything's
we're fully linked. All right. So, but no, real talk is just more than anything, you've done very well over the past several years, and you were actually kind of throwing a curveball. And I think your story kind of just really, really shows what this concept is really all about. Because you took something that you were not expecting, something that you didn't know maybe you wanted. It was just something, like life happens. And then you took that and made it, an option to just make it progress, right? Like work it and make it into something that now you find yourself, at least I see you in that way where you have found success.
Yeah.
And success is different, I think, in many different ways, shapes, and forms. So success might be just a small win, or it might be,
like an overall arching win for the life or family. Yeah.
Correct. So more than anything, let's kind of dive into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then just tell me, who is William Chau?
So I'd say first is I have two amazing kids. And one on the way, which is definitely exciting. So
congrats on that.
Thank you. So very well August 2023, whenever you guys are listening to this, is when we're gonna have our third child, and then married to a lovely wife, which happens to be Ed's sister. So shout out to her. Yes, exactly. So I'd say overall, like the biggest things that I enjoy for me is just being around positive people and being active. I'm always enjoying a challenge. So like, for example, some of the things that I've done recently is like trying to sign up for races, like half marathons with the kids, with the strollers and with them in the strollers, or, when time permits, getting on like longer hikes. Haven't been able to do that just because the kids, at the age, but challenging myself physically and mentally is something that I really resonate myself with and how I kind of go on my day-to-day every day.
That's super cool. By the way, you did the turkey trot in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Or like the half marathon,
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. And you actually, what did you place?
I got like top 10. It was fun. Yeah.
pretty
The kids
cool.
loved
So,
it. I
yeah.
had like snacks and books for them while I was running. So they totally enjoyed it.
We'll see if we throw up a little picture of you with the
strolling.
the stroller.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, actually. Yeah. So
Tired face and the kids all super tired. Yeah. Just getting pushed around.
super tired of being pushed around.
Exactly.
The irony, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But no, super, super cool. So yeah. So aside from, things that you like to do active, which I know for you, I don't think we've ever talked about this, but your discipline for being active, because you started lifting, doing strength training a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you're one of the few people that I know that started that and then has you've been consistent with it.
Yeah.
How does that form such a big part of your life now?
So I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is that there's transferable skills and rituals, whatever you may call them, that build off, and it's almost like building blocks, right? Because to me, the way I see it is the name of the game in terms of like overall success is it's more consistency and like progress over perfection. Okay. So I know that a lot of people get excited, whether it's working out, a new job, a new opportunity. They get excited for like the first couple of weeks, first couple of months maybe, but
yes.
The whole idea is like you got to really shift your mindset and think just long term, right? So it's like for me now at this point, like you were saying, I've been active, whatever that cross country in high school, and then weight training and building all that up. So I've been doing that, I think, for 15-ish
volleyball
plus. Yeah, volleyball, exactly. Like anything that's like active, I totally enjoy. And the discipline, both physically, has carried over into my everyday to day. Because now mentally, when I'm encountering a tough challenge at work or some kind of business opportunity, whatever the case, I'm able to, I feel like, shift my mindset a little bit and really kind of dig down and get through it, because I have that mental strength from physical workouts or just building my mental kind of solitude to be able to push forward.
That's pretty cool, because like you were saying, right? And by the way, work in progress might be another one. I kind of like that for the podcast.
I
maybe
definitely think that's a good one. Yeah,
work in progress. And but you just said something else. I think. Did we say work in progress already?
Work in progress was the first one. TBD.
Was,
that one?
No. It was. Oh my god. Blanking out. No, you said
progress
over perfection.
Oh yeah, progress over perfection.
That might be a good second option.
That's from the most recent one on my mind in terms of like mantras, because me personally, especially when starting something new, I feel like a lot of people, they get caught up with the idea of this has got to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And so honestly, this podcast is a perfect example. You may not have a full name dialed in. You may not have everything that you may want, let's say episode 100 from now, but you're starting. Yeah. And that's probably 99% of the game is actually starting and moving forward, because most people, they don't even start because they feel like they haven't bought the most expensive mics. They haven't bought the most expensive sound system. So there's like, okay, I'm just going to give myself a year to like build up and learn and all this. When it's like, all you really need is just a phone, interview somebody, and then no matter what, it's always going to improve. And that's the whole idea of like progress over perfection.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Because I think, not come to think about it, you're 100% right. I mean, you know how long it took me to build this. It's like it was
turned out amazing.
4 weekends.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, we're in my garage right now. There's everything that you see here. It was all a family effort. My kids pitched in to paint. My wife helped me with a few things to buy little trinkets here and there. But what you just said is, like I really wanted to at least get started today, because I feel that, there's a million excuses that we can come up with.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of push through just to make sure that you can make or take that one step, whether it's a baby step, whether it's a huge step, it doesn't matter. You kind of consider it a milestone at some point.
I honestly today thought that it was going to get rescheduled. I mean, originally we had this plan for today, and then a lot of personal family things happen, like, health, sickness. And I was like, oh, okay, he's going to reschedule today. And then when you shot me the text, like, I don't want to make excuses. I'm going to make this happen if you're still down to do them. I was like, okay, I'm not going to make an excuse. So let's do it.
Which I appreciate.
I'm definitely
100%.
in. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Okay. Well, now let's get into a little bit of all that, how this, everything that we were just talking about, right? Whether it could be the work in progress, the progress over perfection, all these things, your rituals that you've had done, that helps you carry yourself through so many years of strength training, staying active, dealing with your life, right? Because you still have kids that you have to kind of juggle around, help at home, all these things. I know you're pretty devoted man, family man especially. And I always say that you're a blessing to my sister, and my sister's a blessing to you as well. But now let's get into like, what is it that you do? So like your career, what is it that you currently do?
So I would say I have multiple hats. So it's not as if like I'd say one specific thing. So I am a business owner. So I own multiple businesses. And then on top, and we could dive into each and every one if we want, but business owner. And then the other hat that I wear is an e-commerce typing consultant.
Nice.
So essentially focusing primarily on the Amazon side in the e-commerce world. So everything Amazon, especially now, I recently acquired a marketing PPC agency, which is focused primarily on Amazon. So essentially everything Amazon, I have some kind of business venture in, just because Amazon has been a part of my world. Going back to where you were saying that curveball, right? So back in, we actually looked at this recently. I didn't realize how long it had been. It was like 2016, 2017 is when I got introduced to the world of like, oh, this is what Amazon has to offer outside of just what people are typical to just buying, right? There's a whole other side where you can actually make a business and sell to the people buying. Yeah. So that I would say are two biggest hats, kind of career paths that I'm currently running right now.
So multiple business owner, and then you do the e-commerce consulting, right?
Correct.
You have your like e-commerce consulting firm, and then so let's get into like how let's talk about that curveball. Like how did you get started? Because it's not like everything landed on your or on your lap one day, and you're like, oh, I'm just a consultant, or I have my business, or
Correct.
I have multiple businesses. Yeah. So let's start where. Carry me through if we had to go down your resume, right? Your curriculum vitae. I've never been able to say that. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but your resume, like just let's go through like where you've worked and then how you landed here, and then where that progress, how you got started up until the point that you are here now.
Okay, so funny little side story real quick. You mentioned resume. I haven't had a resume in such a long time. Where I had a buddy of mine, like. We were connecting and trying to do some things, and he was like, "Oh, send me your resume, and I can look it over and share it." And I had to like tell him, I was like, "Dude, I have not had a resume since like college, so I don't have that." And so because my path, like you were saying, which we can dive in, has been so unorthodox in a way. Yeah. So I would say the journey overall started probably in high school, as towards the tail end of high school, beginning of college. So back in those days, I was really into reading books. And so I stumbled upon two books that I think really had a huge impact on my life, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich. Okay. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what that kind of quick summary on that, what that taught me was I grew up in in the Asian culture, it's very traditional where the thought process and the values that are kind of carried upon from your parents is that you get a job, you climb the corporate ladder, and then you retire, and that's considered success.
Very true. Yeah.
One job, 25 plus years, and you're just like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Whether that's government or any role, essentially, it's just climbing that ladder is like the typical thing that I was. So that's what, when I was getting out of college, or when I was getting out of high school into college, that's what I was looking for, because that's just what I was exposed to. And so I had multiple jobs, and then I finally picked up, I would say, my first official job as a inventory analyst at Pacific Somewhere. Yeah. So that was my first like real salary, no longer working at the mall type of job and pay. So it's like I made some real money, real hours, real corporate environment. And then so I was there probably for about, I think, 2.5 years. And
for working for PacSun.
Working for PacSun. And the people there all had that similar mindset of like, I want to be here for as long as possible and climb this ladder. Like, I can't wait to get promoted to be a manager, to a director, to a VP, or whatever roles that they may have been. So being when you're exposed in that world and that's all you know, that rubbed off on me to the point where, like, for example, I had a mentor at Pacific Somewhere, and I looked up to him. He crushed it over there. Yeah. And he had been with the company, I think, since he also graduated from college. So he was there for a good almost like 6-7 years. So I saw that as like, okay, that's goals. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to work my way up to get to his level and be there as long as possible. So fast forward, right? Company was going through some rough times, and this is where that curveball kind of came into place, where I was let go, company-wide layoff. So I was part of that. And I had probably like a few months of just not having any jobs.
Okay.
But what I would say is, like, as a caveat, is while I was working that job, and this is where I kind of, in my head, I knew that I was going to do something different than the normal 9 to 5. I just hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Because while I was working Pacific Somewhere, I also had I had started like a small recycling type business where essentially I would go to the gyms, and back in the day, they didn't have recycling bins.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so then I would go and I would just say, hey, I work out here. Can I just put a recycling bin? It's good for the earth. It's recycling, and then you don't have to do anything. I maintain it. I'll buy it, all that. And so that worked really well, and I was able to make some side money from there. And then the other part was that, and then Hazel and I, as we were talking about, we got really into the fitness world. So we started a meal prep business, like out of the kitchen of my own home. We had a whole little grill set up in the backyard, and we just prep meals for people, right? So we had a couple of side hustles, I would say, along with the job. So when I lost the Paxson job, it's not as if I had lost all my income.
Right.
So I was in a blessed position where it's like, okay, cool. I get a reset, figure out what I want to do. And so I had lots of ideas, but again, a lot of the ideas were based off of the world that I was kind of surrounded by. So for example, at one point I was like, oh, maybe I opened up a liquor store or a 99-cent store because one of my uncles owned one. Or the other part was like, oh, maybe a restaurant because one of my aunts owned one. Or maybe a donut shop because at one point my parents owned one. So
Right.
I was kind of thinking only within my world. And then I was blessed to have another friend that was like, hey, I have this other business. It's called Amazon. And I had never heard of Amazon outside of the regular consumer just shopping on it.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is what I do. He's like, are you interested? Because I had just told him, I was laid off and I was looking for something. And honestly, that, along with like everything that I had learned from Rich Dad Poor Dad, it just blew my mind and opened my world up to something that I've never was exposed to. It just made no sense. It was crazy.
Something that was not necessarily taught in the corporate world, we could say, right? I mean,
yeah, most definitely not taught in the work, because this was a side business that he had created, and it was just having the word like side business in general was something, when you're working a 9 to 5 in a corporate world, that's not on your mind. All you're thinking about is clocking in, clocking out, getting the job done, getting promoted, looking for that next bonus, looking for that next promotion. You're not even thinking about side hustles, like other LLCs, other ventures, other business opportunities, right? When I talked to this guy, I realized, oh, wow, you have yes, you have your 9 to 5, which he did. And then he also had like a couple side hustles and like legit side businesses. And that, again, kind of stacked of like, oh, wow, there's so much more that can be done outside of just working a 9 to 5.
So prior to this moment in time, right, you already had that entrepreneur mindset, because I mean, who thinks of going to a gym and telling them, hey, let me recycle your, the bottles that everybody's gonna throw away anyway.
Yeah.
And then you saw an opportunity again when you and my sister, your wife, got into the whole thing of fitness training.
Yep.
And you saw people needed a meal, like meal prep, and especially clean meal preps, right?
Exactly.
Because it was something that you
it was
yourself
still,
was
back in the
going
day, it was still up and coming. Like nowadays, there's a meal prep business everywhere. You can order it online, down the street, not a big deal. But before, they were still up and coming, and it was still a problem that hadn't been solved yet.
100%.
Yeah.
And then again, you lose your job, and you met this guy, right?
Yep.
But tell me where you met him.
So I met him through just working out. Like,
okay.
So he was just a good friend of mine.
So this was something that it wasn't something where you were, and the reason I bring this up is because to me, it's part of something I want to connect down the line later. Yeah. But you met this person working out at the gym.
Correct.
It wasn't somebody that you met in the corporate world at your job or any you looking for specific networks or anything like that. This is somebody that you yourself just met at the gym.
Correct. We used to CrossFit together, and so we hit it off. And this is kind of one of the bigger life lessons that I learned early on, was that you almost want to find that role. And luckily, I've been blessed to have multiple kind of role models and people I can look up to and ask advice to. So he was one of them. And when you find those type of people, they could come at any point in time in life. And it's not necessarily you like searching for them specifically. Like it could just be a friend and more tapping into it. But the big thing that I learned was adding value to their lives first before putting your hand out. Right. So I could have easily just said, all right, give me a job. Eric, teach me, give me all these things. But instead, he shared a couple of things about just financial freedom in general, which was a new topic for me again. And when he shared that with me, like I went hard on it. Like I dove in, I read all the articles that he had shared with me. I went above and beyond, and I showed him what I was doing. And I showed him like, hey, you showed me this. This is how I took it, and I made it my own. And like, this is what I'm learning. Like, what do you think about this? And I was actually proactive about it versus just like, oh, thanks for sharing that, and then just putting it in the back and never like looking at it again.
So your way of showing value, which is something simple, right? It doesn't have to be actual like. It doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be, it's just you were interested.
Exactly.
And you were
just show your
applying
interest.
yourself and showing that interest like, hey, what you taught me, look what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Right? That's simple.
And that's the whole idea of the transferable skills that we were talking about earlier, because again, that could be applied to anything really. Like if you let's say you start a job on day one, right? Instead of just kind of waiting around, you can just go up to whoever you're reporting to. It's like, hey, I want to be successful in this role.
Yeah.
Who's the most successful person here? I want to shadow them for a week. And it's like, oh, wow, okay, that proactiveness, that eagerness to learn can be applied anywhere. And on the other side, when people hear that, they're more willing to share with you. They're more willing to take the time to spend and mold you, versus if you just kind of like have your hand out and like give, or take. I mean, it's more about building that relationship and offering that value.
Dude, and something so cool, because I'll tell you this is just a quick story. When I was in the financial world, I had this great guy, super smart guy, by the way. I'm still, we still have a friendship, and he was my boss. But I looked up to this guy. So anything that he would tell me, like I would eat it up, and I would always apply it. However, it's kind of one of those things you have to be cautious about, because at the time I didn't quite realize it. And now that, look like, hindsight, right? It's always 2020s, but he was talking to us one time, and he was, as a boss, he was telling us we were just had a meeting, and he was telling us like, hey, you know what I do? He's like, you know how I make it in the world and make sure that nobody bothers me, right? And he goes, I just fly under the radar. He's like, what does that mean? He's like, I don't overperform. I don't underperform. He's like, I just stay right in the middle of the pack. Right?
Yeah.
And then to me, at the time, I'm like, well, this guy is my boss, first of all, right? And he is like, aside from that one thing that he was telling us at that moment, he obviously he is a very intelligent, smart person that I still look up to. But it's just one of those things that maybe he didn't realize that the message or that he was passing
the amount of impact his words have on you.
So, and I had just started in that specific role. I was a junior advisor.
Yeah, that makes,
to me, I was like, well,
if he's not trying,
if he's not trying, right? Like his hardest, and he's doing well, then I don't have to try my hardest and do well, right? And I think the way this all connects is because you're saying, hey, if I go to a job, hey, who's the top performer? Like I want to shadow that person because I want to learn from it. It's a different type of mentality. And that really should be the mentality. Or it's like when, another example, when they tell you, oh, C's get you degrees, right?
Yeah.
100% true.
Yep.
100% true. But does that mean you really shouldn't try to get like an A or to try to your best to really learn and do it the right way? I mean, maybe not, right? And so I think to me, now that you're mentioning this, it's just reminded me of that, because it made it was so impactful, to be honest with you, but in the wrong way.
Correct.
Coming from the right person, but in the wrong way, which means that, again, we're human. And maybe in the moment he didn't really quite realize what he was saying. But to me, again, I looked up to him. I was brand new to the role, and I was like, dude, why not? And then he kept getting promoted. You know, and I'm like,
it's working for him.
It's working for him. So, but it wasn't true. He did try his best. It's just, I think it was a way for him to kind of sometimes
like downplay
what the real situation was. Because of course, crap rolls downhill.
Yep.
And sometimes when he was getting some of that heat, maybe he was just trying to buffer some of that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
For us. And I guess the way he pitched it to us, but honestly, to this day, I still think about it. And now I'm like, no, I have to try 100%.
Yeah.
Or I have to go look up to that person that is, a top performer.
Yep. And just go reach out to them or whatever.
Reach out to them because that is really going to allow me to step forward and continue this progress, right?
Yep. Hazel reminds me of this all the time because I intend to, she's very detailed and I'm more of just like a broad stroke general, like as long as the overall direction looks good, then we're good. And so one thing that she's kind of always instilled in me is almost, she doesn't say it, but it's essentially this message is it's how you do anything is how you do everything. Meaning right? If you're doing a small task that's probably just like, let's say, patching a hole in the wall, right? The way you do certain tasks like that carries over how you do other tasks. You don't just you're not just super detail oriented on one project and then sloppy and lazy on another project.
Right.
Your characteristics, your patterns, your habits all carry over, whether it's a small project or a really big project. So that's something that I've been really trying to kind of hone in on, is not being so general and broad.
Yeah.
For certain projects or things that need a little bit more detail to attention.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's super true,
Yeah.
Like these are the little impactful things, right? Little nuggets of gold that, we collect and then we can make something out of
Exactly.
it. Or we,
just don't. Yeah.
Or we don't, right? It's that simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back into it. So
Okay.
you met this gentleman.
Yep.
He has a side hustle already. So he's already in the right track himself because he has his 9 to 5
Yep.
corporate job, but he also has a side hustle.
Correct.
And he invites you to kind of be part of this side hustle, which just happens to be Amazon.
Yeah.
Like it's not the Amazon, but selling things through Amazon. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. So then what happens?
So he exposes me to this new world. We're selling, ink and toner, and it's just me running the business. It's a small business, but it's enough to kind of financially take care of me. And we're just flipping ink and toner. So we're, this can't be done nowadays, but back in the day, it was you just bought ink and toner at liquidation, and then you just sold it on Amazon at almost full retail.
Nice.
So it was just like flipping. It's called retail arbitrage, which people still do nowadays, but it's just not as fruitful as it was back in the day.
Got it.
So that's what we ended up doing, and we had a good run. I think we did that for about 2-3 years, but that again was like the stepping stone to something even bigger, and the exposure to a whole nother world that outside of the corporate world, outside of a typical 9 to 5. It just brought so many networks, brought so many friends, relationships. It was just that was probably a big stepping stone, along with, but again, is he also had other people working for him during this time, and they kind of phased in and out. And so I think what made the difference was that I was able to take that opportunity and run with it.
Gotcha.
Versus some other people, they still saw that as a 9 to 5. It was
And
another job,
right? Yeah.
But if you just look at it in a different perspective, you're just like, oh wow, there's so much opportunity here. There's so much more that can be done.
Yeah.
And so this can 100% evolve into more than a 9 to 5, which it 100% did.
Which again, you saw the opportunity.
Exactly,
Right? That
yeah.
most people won't see.
Yeah.
And that sometimes takes a skill. Maybe it's just a natural thing, or maybe it's just like you were saying, right? Reading up on certain things. Like, for you, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Reading that. And just, I guess it enhances some of these things, or having the knowledge to maybe be able to capture that opportunity when you actually see it, right?
Yeah.
Where most people will it'll just fly by.
Yeah,
them
they
and
just
that's it.
clock in, clock out, and it's just like, just keep on going, and without really thinking about the bigger picture.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
So we get into that, and we get introduced to like all these networking groups. And after, I'd say this was probably like 3-4 years into it, I got introduced to another friend that had a bigger business,
Okay.
that was also looking to kind of phase out. And so he was looking for somebody to essentially run his Amazon business.
Got it.
So he's just like, I want out. Come on in. You're going to run it. I know you've had some prior experience somewhat. Learn how to do it and just run with it, because I have another thing to focus on. He had another business, another successful business that he wanted to work on.
Got it.
So I came in, and this was one of those like scary, didn't know what I was doing, because on day one, I was expecting like the typical corporate onboarding process of like, all right, so here's HR, here's your deck, here's your day one, here's your training, here's your partner you're going to shadow, and they'll teach you everything. It was just like 100% remote. So I didn't get to talk to people in the office and like ask questions. And
This is way before the pandemic, by the way.
this
right?
is this was, I'd say 2018, 2019 maybe. And I started the role, and I kid you not, like 1 month had gone by, and I still had no idea what I was doing. Like, I knew why I was there, but I never got proper training. And so I didn't know what I was technically supposed to be doing outside of like help grow the business.
Gotcha.
So there was so many things. That's such a broad statement. Okay, you're going to come in, you're going to help grow the business. Go. Right? And it's just like,
What does it mean?
yeah, exactly. So I I was in that, and this is where like that change in mindset, I was just waiting. Like, all right, any day now, he's going to hit me up and give me the full rundown of the business.
Yeah.
He's going to teach me everything. It's essentially, I was looking for somebody to hold my hand.
Did that day ever come?
That day did not come.
Never.
So after like a month, I told Hayes, I was like, I don't think he's going to call me at this point. And like, if he does call me, it's probably because he's going to fire me because I haven't done anything in like a month. Right. So I'm like, okay, let's start getting proactive. So then I started poking around, changing things, messing around, trying to learn. I hit up some of the different team members to get on like calls with them and like learn the business my own way. And it worked out way better that way because again, he was also an entrepreneur himself. So the last thing he had time for was holding my hand.
Yeah.
Because typically entrepreneurs aren't the ones to hold your hand.
Correct.
That's more of a corporate world type of vibe. Entrepreneurs are like, hey, I'm hiring you because you're an expert in what you do.
Or because they believe in...
They believe in you. So come on board and just run with what you got.
Right.
And, we'll guide you. But this isn't the corporate world where here's your handbook and PowerPoint presentation on how to like crush it. It's got to be like come kind of within.
So this is not where you meet Betty from HR. She kind of holds your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey,
I was waiting. I was waiting, but it definitely never came. So poking around, learning little by little, and then it kind of evolved into, okay, now I understand more about the Amazon world.
Yeah.
And so again, even though originally it was a pretty scary thing because there was a lot of expectations. Like, all right, you're going to run the business. And I had never run an Amazon business before. Like, I felt like what we were doing before was a lot easier.
Yeah.
It was more physical labor.
Yeah.
Flipping things, right? But now that was all taken care of. Now it's more using your mind, strategic thinking to grow the business.
Got it.
And so I had to learn, talk with the CFO, talk with the other team members, and just a big learning curve. But after I got past it, all that discomfort kind of faded away. And looking back at it, a lot of the things that kind of scared me, made me nervous, are just not even concerns anymore. It's just like not even a big deal at this point.
You dealt with that fear by
just head on,
right? And
exactly.
just got over it. Mm-hmm. So and again, I think fear stops us from doing many things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Again, this podcast, right? I don't even know what the heck this is gonna go, if it's gonna grow, if it's not gonna grow, and it doesn't matter. I think this is more of a passion project, and I really want to do it for my son. Like I was explaining at the beginning, but there is still fear of doing these things, right? Because you don't know what's gonna happen. But I think as you do them, as you fail, as you succeed, you learn all these things, all these lessons that nobody else is going to teach you but experience.
Exactly.
Right.
And then for all you know, right, is you do enough podcasts, you meet the right person, you connect with a different person down the road that if you didn't do this podcast, you would have never encountered that person. You would have never met them. So that's how I see it. I feel like there's a reason for everything. So if this is a calling, it's some shape or form, it's going to pay as long as you commit yourself and you add the value. If the value is there, it's going to come back around. That's how I see
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
No, and I truly believe that. But I'm glad that you also went through that kind of like process because it just shows that again, it's part of the journey. I think it doesn't matter how you look at it, right? It is at some point you are going to have to deal with some type of fear. Whether it's
the fear of uncertainty, fear of doubt, like all that goes through. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you work a 9 to 5 or you're just an average Joe or, high life, you always will have those type of thoughts in your head. And then it's just a matter of how quickly you can shake it off and keep moving.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So by the way, what are you able to say what type of product you guys were selling for that second company that you got hired on?
Oh yeah, we were just selling patch cables. Like Ethernet cables, like nothing sexy, like literally office equipment, cables, wires. But it sells. Yeah. So we just anything that you plug in for the office, extension cords.
So you went from ink to cables.
Ink to cables.
And then you went from running running the warehouse, I guess, that you guys had for the ink and doing all the stuff and flipping them. And then the cables, what was your actual, what were you doing? What was the growing the business type job? Like, what was it that you were actually doing?
So it was more reviewing the catalog and just seeing what opportunities there were.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
How could we push the sales more on this type of product? How can maybe we cut this because it wasn't as profitable. So like asking those kind of questions, which was different than, at the warehouse was more of like, all right, we got all these pallets in, let's work through them. And then we just list them on Amazon and then they kind of sell.
Gotcha.
A little different. Yeah.
Perfect. So then what happens after that?
So I think my first major networking event happened in Canada. And this is where it's a networking event of Amazon sellers that do 7 figures or more. So I went through because of the company that I had worked with. So he sent me as a representative because he was sick or for whatever reason he couldn't go.
Okay.
So I took that as a great opportunity. I went and I ended up rooming with now one of my best friends who we...
Wait. Let's stop right there.
Okay.
I thought I was your best friend. What happened?
I said one.
Okay, that's
we
true.
run it
Yeah.
back. See, I can have more than one. There's plenty of me to go around, guys.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Okay, keep going.
So we got it. We bunked in the same room in Canada, and it was the first time we had ever met. We hit it off really well, and he was telling me about this board game business that he had started up with another friend of his, and it was just in the starting phase, and I was able to build enough relationship with him where it got to a point where it's like, okay, cool. Let's see if there's something we can kind of do together.
Okay.
And so that evolved into now, fast forward, I think like 4 or 5 years now, like we still have this successful board game business that we're continuing to grow.
Which, by the way, this is the time. I don't have it yet. I was thinking of a button or something like that, but this is the time for the plug. So go ahead and make your plug. What's your board game?
Oh, off topic. So
Off Topic.
Yeah, off topic is our main board game. And so we're launching, I think 3 to 6 games this year. The most recent ones that we launched were like Get the Picture, Last Call is our drinking game. So we have a whole assortment of like adult party games.
Yeah.
We tried the kids game at first, but that we realized it definitely wasn't our market or niche. So we know like adult party games, whether they're drinking or not, but to get adults better together is what we kind of focus on.
And they're super fun, by the way. Like
Cool,
you always like have us go through the to testing.
Yeah.
And we love it because I know when we all get together, like our cousins and everybody, they're always having fun with that kind of stuff. So super, super cool game. So I think that's pretty cool. So anyway, so going back to this, you met with this gentleman, you guys, roomed together, you guys hit it off. He invites you to be part of the whole
the business. Yeah.
And then you guys like basically start running with it. Like and this is one of your businesses that you actually run, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah.
And so then what happens after that? Like what was the process for like, obviously I guess right, life threw you not so much of a curveball, but like an opportunity, which was just meeting this man by random, right?
Correct. It was literally by random. Yeah.
And then,
I'd never met him before, didn't know who he was, and we just ended up bunking together, and it was like, this is great.
Super cool. So you guys start the business, and what was that progress like? Like what did it take to actually get it running?
So he had already done some of I think he was like on like 6-7 months in. So he has some of the foundation.
Yeah.
So outside of like setting up the LLC and getting all the tax paperwork, all that taken care of, like the biggest thing was like, okay, so we have this game. How do we take it from idea to physical product that we can sell to the marketplace?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the conversations was, okay, so logistically, we need to get some suppliers on board. We need to figure out freight because none of us had ever shipped from China to the US.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. If we're going to ship it there, who's going to manage that? Like what company do we reach out to that says, take our stuff from China and deliver it to here? And then it's here. Okay, where is here? Like, okay, I guess we need a warehouse because we're not going to store it in our home. So then we had to go find a warehouse. So, and it was a lot of things where it was a learning curve because as we made progress, again, not progress over perfection, right? We realized, oh, we're going to need this. Oh, we're going to need this. Because in our heads, we were kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We're like, okay, we're going to need marketing. We're going to need budgeting. And it's like, no, it's actually a lot more. Before you get ahead of yourself, just get yourself a working product.
Okay.
That's actually going to sell.
Yeah.
And then worry about everything else. Because a lot of people get ahead of themselves. Like, I got to sign up for the most expensive softwares. I got to sign up for this. I got to make sure I'm plugged into this. And then they realize that their product is a flop. And then their business is like,
they already invested so much into it.
Yeah, they invested so much just because they thought this is what they needed.
So what you're saying is throwing money at something doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, unless you have lots of money and it's not a concern. Like if you just have like money to burn and like throw at it, enough money will fix any problem.
Right.
But if you're trying to be conscious of that, you want to focus your priorities because a lot of people tend to do other things that are probably not as important to avoid like the main thing.
Got it.
So once we found out like, oh wow, we have a winning product and we actually sold it. We had a successful Q4 because that's when typically a lot of the sales come in. We started like doubling down, like, okay, cool, we got one product now. Let's start creating more games.
Got it.
And it just started evolving from there. And so now every year we try and launch like 4 to 6 games.
Yeah.
And then just kind of continue to build from there.
It's pretty aggressive, 4 to 6 games. How do you guys come up with the ideas for the games?
So we have a creative person
Cool.
that's just her role. Yeah. Like she just focuses on how she can make games.
Yeah.
Whether it's like completely 100% unique or maybe like spin-offs of other games or however. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool. And then you guys just test them, right? And see what
And then we
what
just
sticks.
constantly test them. Yeah. Like for example, I think our last Christmas is one of our games, and we had tested it with family.
Yeah.
It was literally like pieces of
fun.
paper and pencil and like in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
It was like the beta. And then it turned into like, this was a hit. We got our designers, everybody got kind of chipped in on board, and now we have like an official product that we sold pretty successfully.
So again, progress
Q4.
over perfection kind of
Progress
thing,
over
right?
perfection, exactly. Like
cool.
Yeah.
So then you guys have now you have this business. You're still running your you're still working for this other gentleman, right? And then like what continue? How does the story continue?
So as things start progress and my experience progresses and everything, I think the way it kind of continues is that eventually your name kind of gets out there. And so little by little, people just were interested in either working with me or partnering with me or in some shape or form, because they were just like, oh, wow, Will, he seems to know what he's doing, right? He's guys going on because they've never met me. So they just hear word of mouth. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is that your personality, your brand itself makes a huge impact on your potential success in the future. Right? If you come off as like this arrogant guy that just all he wants is looking out for himself, word spreads very quickly, whether you know it or not. And there may be deals that have been killed in the background that you never heard of or that you were never aware of, only because somebody mentioned your name in a third party circle and they were like, oh, that guy, I don't want to work with him. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool, I won't reach out to him. And like, you would never know. But again, it's your reputation that follows you no matter where you go.
Got it. So how did you start meeting? Like aside, I'm assuming obviously you're working for all these entrepreneurs, these business owners, right?
Yep.
Like helping them grow their businesses. Now you start your own business on the side. You're still working all these things. And then it's just about meeting people.
Yeah.
So let's hone in on this, because this is kind of like, I think, very important. And it's something that I've learned from you, networking. How important is networking?
Yeah, I think it is extremely important. So I've constantly learning how to improve my own networking skills. Like I have a lot of friends that in my head do networking very well. And so when I say networking, it's meeting people in a genuine way and always adding value. So not necessarily when a lot of people think networking. And so this is where in Think and Grow Rich, back in the day, I would always read about masterminds.
Okay.
And in my head, I thought it was so cool. There were masterminds of like Thomas Edison, Abraham Bell. Like there was like all these like epic people that used to meet up back in the day. I'm like, man, where do I find my mastermind? And so a lot of people go to these events in their niche, in their career paths, and they're kind of timid.
Yeah.
And not to say that you need to get on stage and like talk to everybody, but it's more of you want to just introduce yourself to these people, and with the thought process of how can I make your life easier? How can I make your life better? Not, hey, my name is William. Like, what do you do? Because I'm trying to figure out if I could take something from you.
Got it.
It's more like I want to meet you so I can see how I can help you. Because if you help enough people get what they want, it's going to come back to you, and then you'll be able to just reciprocate that to get that back to you.
Which is really cool. And again, it's a simple concept, right?
Very simple,
But I think it gets missed quite a bit, right? Because I think you're right. I don't know if it's human nature or something. Maybe there's some psychology. I'm sure there's some psychology behind it. But that whole thing of like, you're doing so well, what can you give me kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
Versus how can I add value to
Correct.
what you already have?
Yep.
And going through that process sometimes can, it's different, I guess.
Yes.
It really is different. So, so then you have all these networking events, right? That does help. But let's say somebody who's an introvert. What type of advice would you give that person to actually try to go and do something or try to, because an introvert might not be as comfortable going to somebody and saying, hi, right? My name is Eddie or my name is Ed or what have you. And how do you go through that process?
So I would say before I feel like I'm a hybrid. I'm definitely an introvert by heart. And so but everyone tells me, like, oh, you're so like outgoing and you're so social, but it takes a lot of energy for me to do so. But if somebody were to like just starting off and they were like introverted and they went to this network event, I think the biggest thing is just putting yourself out there. And it's almost, I actually was listening to this, I forgot who said it exactly, but they were essentially saying, what if I told you you were like 20 no's away from success, right? If you knew that, you would be so excited to get no's because you just like, I just got to get to 20 and I know 21 will be a yes, right? You shift your mindset. And so what helped me the most is when I talk to people, again, if you don't come from a place of like, what can I take from you? It makes it very easy. And if you're timid, if you're shy, have an honest conversation with these people and be a good listener.
Okay.
Right? Because people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
So if you just are a good listener, you're able to extract a lot of information. And then because like there's definitely studies that show that if you have people talk about themselves, even if you don't say very much and you kind of just keep the rhythm and keep the flow, at the end of the conversation, even if you spoke very minimally, they're going to think back and like, oh yeah, Will's a good guy. Like they wouldn't understand, like they talk like 99% of the time, but because they talked about themselves, there was like good conversations and it kind of flowed.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best way if like you weren't able to kind of stand out and be an extrovert naturally, is like, listen, talk to them and just truly listen to what they have to say and then add value where you can. I mean, you're not going to be able to add value everywhere.
Yeah.
But again, just do what you can at the end of the day.
So I think what you just mentioned in regards to that is super, super helpful, right? Because I think it makes the difference between, like you said, going to someone and knowing, or even if you set that limit to yourself, hey, every no gets you closer to a yes, right? So how many no's is it going to take me to get to that yes? Mm-hmm. How can I add value to this person, right?
Yeah.
How can it just be genuine? Just be yourself, right? You don't have to be fake.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be, I mean, there's going to be people that are awkward. There's going to be people that just you don't vibe with. You don't need to get along with everybody. Right. There's going to be people you connect with and then the others you don't. You just got to keep going. Yeah, exactly. That's 100% okay. That's the whole point of networking, is because most people I see go to these events and they think, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to listen to the speaker.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the whole point of these events is not necessarily to listen to the speaker, because you could just go on YouTube and listen to them.
Yeah.
It's like connecting with all these like-minded people.
Correct.
That you may or may not, connect with.
Cool. So now let's fast forward to where you're at now in your career. So you've done different things for different companies, different businesses, right? And just recently, without getting into too many details, like again, your name was brought up because of people that know you, recommended you to this multi-million-dollar company that now is trying to bring you on board, or basically has brought you on board to assist them with, the business, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, it just shows the power of how networking really continues to push you through. Not only that, but obviously, of course, you're doing the right job, meeting the right people. You're coming across as a genuine person who really knows what they're doing, right? And even when you don't, you figure it out.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
As we kind of like talked over. So overall, right, you're in a really successful place, at least from my point of view. Does like, from your point of view, is this where, do you feel like you're successful, or do you feel like you're in the right track, or, is there still obviously a long way? Because, we're still young, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what does success look like to you?
So I definitely feel somewhat successful. I do, in my head personally, there's a path that I'm on. Yeah. That I still need to like kind of journey through. Okay. So I would say overall success for me is more just no longer just not trading time for money at any point in time, right? Yeah. And so that's why a lot of these ventures, opportunities that I'm working on, the way I see it, it's more planting seeds. Yes. To be able to, once the fruit grows and I'm able to like enjoy life at that point, then it's like, okay, cool. I planted all these seeds and all these different opportunities. Some hit, some didn't, but now I'm able to kind of live this lifestyle where I'm no longer trading time for money. Got it. Right. So I'm definitely on that path. It's just getting to a higher position of that. Got it. And I love that. I think we talked about this not too long ago, I think, but you brought that up, and it had, again, simple concepts, but they just don't cross your mind. Yeah. Trading time for money, right? Exactly. Yeah. How important that is to get to a place where you don't have to consistently keep trading time for the money, right? Instead, you just kind of maybe, like you mentioned, plant all those seeds and allow them to start,
growing,
Yep.
and then you don't have to continuously work in a sense, right? Like legitimately physically continue to work.
Correct. Yeah.
For that money to continue to come in.
Exactly. And again, it's not, and that's my definition of success, right? So it's not looking down or whatever the case may be. If you happen to like love your 9 to 5, then that's great. And so the way I see it though is I want the freedom to do kind of what I want with my family. So my family's growing, kids are fairly young. So when they get to that age where they're a little bit older and we can actually go on adventures, like I want to be able to tap hard into that and just go enjoy life with them.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, because these opportunities are more like business ventures, I don't ever see myself ever stopping just doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's just the type of person that I am. I'm always going to do something.
Yeah.
It's just more of like, how much is it in more on my terms versus like a split between my terms and like somebody else's terms and time. And
and that's something else I love about you. Whenever we talk about the, like people hiring and stuff like that, and again, just to keep it short, but I know in the past you set your terms as like your boundaries, right? And you respect them. Like if something goes wrong, or you're like, hey, like even if it may lead to a lot of money, you're like, no, it's crossing those boundaries that we set from the beginning, and it's just not for me, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know sometimes walking away may not seem like the right option, but it may just very well be, just to make sure that you don't like that your terms, your boundaries, right, don't consistently get diminished.
Yeah,
right.
100%. Like I literally a perfect opportunity or example of that is, so I had a client before, and I was working them for about half a year, and like you said, it didn't align with my values, it didn't align with my goals. Like financially, yes, it did, but everything else was like not there. So I decided to kind of walk away from that money. And at first I was like, okay, this is going to be a difficult decision financially, but it's okay. We'll figure it out. And like literally like a week or two afterwards, word got out that I had finished that part of, venture or whatever the case may be. So I had some extra time on my hands. And so somebody else presented like another business opportunity who was like, hey, I heard this. I got this on my plate. Like, are you interested? And that has turned into something that's way more aligned to what I'm looking for, to my goals. And so, and that still holds true to today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, you never know. Like walking away from one opportunity, I'm a big believer in like one door closes, like another one opens. You just need to wait or look for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, super. Like I think it's right on point.
Yeah.
All right. So to wrap it up, man, like give me, explain overall, right? Like what type of resources for somebody who maybe wants to get started and get to not just Amazon overall. E-commerce is a big part of our industry nowadays. Everything continues to be delivered to everybody's homes. But there's such aside from like the Amazon that we know from the retail perspective, right? There's such a broad, a vast opportunity within it, right? So like just e-commerce overall, Amazon being one of them. There's several other ones, but what would you recommend for somebody who may be interested in kind of like following along your footsteps to maybe get started, or maybe doesn't know where to start? Like what would be some of the resources or steps, however you make it your own, that you would tell this person to kind of like follow?
So the biggest things I would say is not limiting yourself. Okay. And understanding that like there are opportunities and there's education out there. Like I would say the biggest resource right now is YouTube. Like any topic, not even Amazon, e-commerce, like any topic that you really want to learn, you genuinely can learn on YouTube. There are so many experts out there, so many gurus. There's even like so many just like regular people out there just that have a passion for a subject. Yeah. And so like, for example, if you searched Amazon private label or Amazon success, you're going to see so many videos. A lot of them are going to be gimmicky and trying to sell you on stuff, but there are people out there that actually put out good content to show you and kind of expose you to this world. Because back in the day, that was not the case. Like you had to kind of know somebody. Yeah. But now you don't need to know anybody at the moment. Like you can just you can know these people via their YouTube channels or their social media. Like everyone's on social media of some sort. True. So I'd say that's probably like the number one thing. And then once you get more involved in the space, it's more looking to people and seeing again what value you can add. Because whether it's an Amazon business or it doesn't matter what kind of business. If you're an entrepreneur and you find somebody and somebody comes to you and says, I'm truly passionate, I know what I'm doing, or even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm truly passionate, I want to learn, I'm a quick learner, you got the attitude, you're willing to learn. Good people are hard to find.
True.
So if somebody were to come to me and say, I want to learn Amazon, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm going to figure out a way to work with this guy. I'm going to bring him onto the team and train him, work with him, because I can train somebody how to push buttons on Amazon.
Okay.
That's not an issue. What I can train is your willingness to learn, your dedication, your commitment. Like all of these, again, what we were talking about before is these are like transferable skills that I can't train. And it's just something that you kind of have to work on your own.
Right.
And that self-discipline that we were talking about.
Yeah, cool. Do any other resources that you use right now or anything else that you would, any books out there that you kind of like know about, podcasts even, or even people that you follow on YouTube, networking?
So networking, find like-minded people.
Okay.
Even if it's like small, like tiny conferences, they don't need to be like big international conferences. Find small ones, because the whole goal of that is to connect with like-minded people, because you're going to realize they're doing things differently in the same world as you. And then it's going to give you new perspectives, new conversations. It's just going to give, because again, back to you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So as soon as you put yourself in this world where everyone is doing what you're doing, you're going to realize like, oh, it's actually not as intimidating as I thought. I was trying to do 100 episodes. I just talked to a guy who did 2,000 episodes in like 3 months. And it's like, oh, like again, it just opens your eyes, like it can be done.
Right.
Right. And then in terms of just, so meeting people.
Books.
So I would say the biggest ones, like the most popular ones, is like Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I believe it's Dale Carnegie, but it's like how to win and influence people.
Okay.
I believe it's the book. That one was a good one because it kind of trains you or teaches you emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Where it's like making an extra effort to stand out amongst everybody.
Okay. Pretty cool. Cool. All right, my friend. Well, I mean, that's really it. I mean, again, remember this is the
number
first
one
podcast. Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
100%. So I really just honestly, from the bottom of my heart, just want to thank you for the support always.
Of course.
For being here, for sharing everything, kind of tapping into your mind and being able to kind of just go over all this. And again, whether it's for Santi, whether it's for anybody else that it can help them, get along. I know a lot of this information, honestly, maybe we have talked about it. A lot of it we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
It helps me too, to continue to grow. So I know I will take this and make sure that I can try to apply it more consistently to my life. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time. I know your time is precious.
Yeah.
I truly appreciate it. But thanks so much for everything, man.
No, this is great. I cannot wait to see what episode like 100 looks like, and then we're gonna look back at this first episode and like laugh and like remember how we did this, and like it's gonna be so different. Like I can't wait. Super excited for this. I know this is gonna be some value adds coming in the pipeline for you guys.
For sure. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, William Chau, first episode for
in the books.
Work in progress. Progress and perfection.
Yeah. Progress over perfection. Yeah.
Progress over perfection. I think
yeah.
I'm liking that one over.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. Progress over
That's
perfection.
my mantra right now, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. Hopefully you guys like the episode. Continue to tune in. We'll continue to talk to people just, as like-minded as well. Different, walks of life, just to kind of bring in their insight and what they do, and maybe it helps you, on your path to finding what, your success might be or your career path might be.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.